Good evening, John Lombard with ABC Mid-Evening News. Still confusion tonight about how much hold Russian forces have over the Chechen capital Grozny. The Kremlin says it controls much of the city, including many government buildings. But Chechen rebels insist their situation is not as bad as Russia is describing it. Heavy fighting has continued throughout Grozny as Moscow's troops push their final assault against the separatists. Russian tanks are reported to have surrounded the presidential palace, and Russian snipers positioned in the city centre are said to be firing indiscriminately at people in the streets. This report from CNN.
New Year's Eve in Grozny. The planes attacked, then a massive barrage of artillery and tank fire shook the city. Apartment blocks blazed. Gas pipelines spewed out flames. Chechen trucks had been hit. But the biggest onslaught of this conflict was centered on General Dudayev's headquarters. It appeared from where we were standing that the presidential palace had been hit, but we couldn't get any closer to confirm this. A rocket landed just behind us. From the distance, you could see why the sun couldn't shine on Grozny today, a sickening cloud with the stench of cordite beneath it. Chechen fighters pulled back from positions and started to regroup as tanks and artillery hit this tiny republic's parliament building. There's a massive Russian ground push underway, and it could be the final one, with the Chechen capital about to fall.
Peace at last in Bosnia, but only for a short time. The Muslim-led government has signed an agreement for a 4-month ceasefire. It'll mean a reopening of routes to Sarajevo, ending the 1,000-day-old siege of the city and the withdrawal of troops from Bihać. But the Bosnian government says peace hasn't been bought with concessions.
Don't think that this agreement in any way weakens our position in our hearts and our goals on the basis that we are building our resistance in this country.
The 4-month truce follows a temporary ceasefire which began on Christmas Eve. The United Nations hopes the temporary halt to hostilities will enable a resumption of talks for a permanent peace. And peace greetings across the divide in Northern Ireland. In a procession dubbed the Dawn of Peace, Catholics and Protestants have met at the so-called Peace Line in West Belfast. Gates that divided the two communities for decades have been open since the ceasefire. The ceremony on a freezing winter's night took place on streets which a year ago would have been deserted. Police in America have arrested a man over yesterday's shootings at 2 abortion clinics in Boston. John Salvage was spotted by a police officer while firing shots into a 3rd clinic in Norfolk, Virginia.
Radioed the alarm, 2 uniformed police officers from the Norfolk Police Department within a block pulled him over. Salvage immediately threw a weapon out of the car, and he surrendered.
Salvage is charged with killing 2 women and injuring another 5 people when he fired on the first 2 clinics just minutes apart. The 22-year-old New Hampshire hairdresser is described by his employer as a religious fanatic. Yachtswoman Isabel Autissier is on her way to dry land tonight aboard HMAS Darwin. The lone sailor's ordeal on board her stricken yacht ended after 4 days when she was winched to safety.
Dawn over the Southern Ocean, and Ms Autissier's 4-day battle to survive huge swells in her crippled yacht is about to end. By 6 this morning, HMAS Darwin had steamed close enough for the helicopter on its deck to fly to Ms Autissier and winch her to safety. An RAAF Orion kept watch overhead.
I've heard about instructions for getting up there, but I don't understand how they will pass it through the radio, right?
The helicopter will contact you on this frequency. Over.
Okay, good copy.
The rescue took just a couple of minutes. A medical checkup on the Darwin showed Ms Autissier's none the worse for her ordeal. 5 RAAF aircraft have taken turns circling overhead since locating the yacht drifting midway between Antarctica and Australia last Thursday. Ms Autissier is expected to arrive at Edinburgh Air Base at midday tomorrow. She'll be met by BOC race officials and some of the RAF crew who've helped keep her spirits up until today's airlift.
First it was the lone skipper's rescue, now it's her boat. Isabel Autissier has been forced to leave behind her $1 million vessel. But already a salvage effort has been launched by the yacht's insurers to bring the craft back.
Despite the weather uncertainties and doubts over whether Equurial will take a tow, the Salvage skipper is confident of success.
Well, if the position reports keep coming in, I think we've got a 90% chance of success. The weather's really the only depending factor. I think we should find the vessel okay. Whether we can actually get a line on it or not will be weather dependent when we get down there.
But the representatives of the French insurance company underwriting Isabelle Autissier's vessel aren't so sure.
Not entirely confident. There is a degree of gamble involved in recovering it, but we feel obviously an attempt has to be made given the value of the stricken vessel.
The Petuna Explorer will track emergency beacons left by the RAAF, but John Peterson expects the beacon's batteries to give way within 3 days.
They've dropped several emergency beacons to her, which is somewhat confusing. We've just got to hope that the one that we are getting the information from is the correct one.
If it's obvious that we can't find the boat, or we find the boat and we can't tow it in, the operation will be called off at that time.
The stricken vessel, the Equurial, was valued at over $1 million prior to sailing in the BOC Round the World race.
And now a brief look at the national weather. Showers for Sydney, late storms for Darwin and mainly fine in the other capitals. And that's all from the newsroom this evening. There'll be more ABC News at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. But we'll leave you now with another look at the New Year celebrations. Good night.